In 1971, an airline closed the waiting list for its newest route because too many people had signed up. 93,000 names from 90 countries. The destination on those reservations was the moon. That's what this company was. When Americans imagined the future, jets, oceans crossed before dinner, vacations in space. The future had a logo on it, a blue globe on a white tail. Pan Am, the airline that flew the Beatles into America. The airline that invented the jet age, the jumbo jet, the very idea of the world as a place you could simply go. And on December 4th, 1991, midday, mid-schedule, with passengers standing at the gates, Pan Am ran out of money and stopped existing. Not shrank, not merged. Stopped. How does the airline that owned the sky fall out of it in a single generation? The answer begins with an airline that had no airplane and a deadline it met by borrowing one. (1927). A 28-year-old named Juan Tripp, Yale man, Navy-trained aviator, born salesman, has raised $250,000 from his rich college friends to start an airline. One of those friends, by the way, is named Cornelius Vanderbilt Whitney. Yes, that family. A splinter of the greatest fortune of the last century, quietly seeding the next one. In America, the money never disappears. It just changes vehicles. Tripp's prize is a U.S. Post Office contract. Fly the mail from Key West, Florida to Havana, Cuba. There's just one condition. Service must begin by October 19, 1927. As the date closes in, Tripp's airline has the contract, the crew, the ambition, and no airplane ready to fly. So, on the deadline itself, Pan American Airways operates its first flight in a chartered Fairchild floatplane borrowed on its way to another owner. The mail gets to Havana. The contract survives. The airline that would one day take reservations for the moon began with a rented plane and a deadline met by hours. What happens next is the pattern of Tripp's whole life. He doesn't build routes. He builds relationships that grant routes. And his greatest relationship is with Washington itself. The United States, watching German-backed airlines spread through Latin America, wants one strong American carrier abroad. Pan Am becomes that carrier, the government's chosen instrument. American competitors are quietly kept out of Pan Am's international skies. Remember this deal. It builds the empire, and half a century later, it ends it. Through the 30s, Tripp assembles the map. He tours Latin America, negotiating landing rights with a co-pilot the whole world recognizes, Charles Lindbergh. And to cross the water, Pan Am builds a fleet unlike anything before or since, the great flying boats, the Clippers. 28 of them, named like ocean liners, boarding like ocean liners. White tablecloths, sleeping berths, silverware, except they flew. From the seaplane base at Dinner Key, Miami, the Clippers stitched together the Caribbean and South America. Then, in 1935, the China Clipper did what no airline had ever done. It crossed the Pacific Ocean. By decade's end, Pan Am's flying boats were carrying passengers across the Atlantic, too. Understand the scale of the claim. Oceans, the walls of human geography since the beginning of time, and one company, in one decade, made them scheduled. Tuesdays and Fridays. The world had a new shape, and Pan Am had drawn it. After the war, the empire goes global. But stay alert, because inside this golden age, the flaw is already set. Pan Am flies everywhere, except inside the United States. World routes, yes. Cleveland to Chicago, forbidden. That was the chosen instrument bargain. File it away. Because first comes glory. October 26, 1958, a Pan Am Boeing 707, Clipper America, lifts out of New York for Paris, and the jet age begins for American aviation. The first American jetliner, flown first by Pan Am. Flight times nearly cut in half, fares down. Suddenly, the Atlantic is an overnight errand. If you remember flying in the 60s, you remember what that blue globe meant. People dressed to board a Pan Am Clipper. The stewardesses in that blue uniform were celebrities of the ordinary sky. The seat pocket route map didn't show a region, it showed the Earth. Pan Am wasn't selling seats, it was selling membership in the modern world. February 7, 1964. A Pan Am 707 named Clipper Defiance touches down at the brand new JFK Airport, and out the door come 4 young men from Liverpool. Beatlemania arrives in America on a Pan Am jet. Of course it does. When the 60s needed to deliver the future, there was only one carrier for the job. Then, Juan Trippe makes his last great bet. Maybe the greatest one any airline ever made. In 1965, he goes to his friend Bill Allen, the head of Boeing, with a simple, insane request. Build me a plane much larger than the 707. Boeing bets the company on it. Trippe signs as launch customer on Boeing's 50th anniversary. The result is the 747. The jumbo jet, the whale-shaped cathedral that would carry the human race for half a century. It exists because one man asked his friend for a bigger airplane. By 1970, the numbers are imperial. 11 million passengers, 86 countries, every continent except Antarctica. The first airline to fly the whole world, running the reservations on computers before most banks did. And the Moon List, those 93,000 names, tells you what the brand had become. It started almost as a lark, but people meant it. They believed, reasonably, that whenever humanity started boarding for space, the gate agent would be wearing Pan Am blue. No company in American history ever owned the future more completely. Juan Trippe steps back at the end of the 60s, an old emperor leaving at high tide. And almost immediately, the tide turns. Because the empire has 3 problems, and it was born with the worst of them. Problem 1 arrives with the oil shocks of the 70s. Fuel costs explode just as Pan Am's brand new fleet of enormous 747s needs enormous numbers of passengers to break even. Jumbo jets, half full, burning gold. Problem 2 is the world catching up. Every nation now has its own jet-flying flag carrier, competing on the very routes Pan Am pioneered. The pioneer's reward, as ever, is company. But problem 3 is the one that kills. Go back to the bargain. Pan Am flew the world and in exchange flew nothing inside America. For 50 years, that looked like aristocracy. In airline economics, it was a missing organ. Think of what an airline actually is: a river system. Small streams, Des Moines, Memphis, Columbus, feed passengers into hubs, and the hubs fill the big planes crossing oceans. Every rival had streams. Pan Am had only the ocean. Its jumbos had to fill themselves from 2 cities and a reputation. As long as government rules kept everyone in their lanes, the defect stayed hidden. And then, in 1978, Washington did the one thing Pan Am never planned for. It tore up the lanes. The Airline Deregulation Act opened American skies to open competition. Routes, fares, everything. For travelers, it meant cheap flights. For the industry, it meant war. And for Pan Am, it meant this. The domestic giants, with their river systems of feeder routes, could now pour into international flying and fill their overseas jets from 300 American cities. Pan Am, the international-only aristocrat, was invited to compete, with no rivers, no streams, no routes. The chosen instrument had been chosen by a government that no longer existed. The protection that built the empire was the same wall that had kept it from ever growing roots, and both were gone in a single act of Congress. The fatal decisions arrive in spreadsheets, not sirens, and sometimes they arrive as laws, with your competitors' names on the guest list. Pan Am understood immediately. In January 1980, it swallowed National Airlines, a domestic carrier bought at a bidding war price, trying to graft a river system onto a 50-year-old tree. The merger was expensive, the fit was poor, the cultures fought. The patch didn't hold. And so began the decade of selling. How does a giant pay this year's fuel bill? It sells a piece of itself, and next year, another. Wall Street calls it restructuring. From inside, it feels like what it is: amputation. One limb at a time, each sale buying 18 more months of altitude. The proudest cut came in 1985. United Airlines offered $750 million for Pan Am's entire Pacific division. The routes of the China Clipper. The ocean Pan Am had crossed first, when crossing it was thought impossible. Pan Am said yes. It had to. The pioneer sold the Pacific to pay for the Atlantic. And then came the wound that had nothing to do with balance sheets. On the evening of December 21st, 1988, Pan Am Flight 103, a 747 named Clipper Maid of the Seas, was destroyed by a terrorist's bomb over the town of Lockerbie, Scotland. 243 passengers, 16 crew, 11 people on the ground. 270 lives, the deadliest terrorist attack in British history. Years later, a Libyan intelligence officer was convicted, and Libya paid compensation for the murders its agents carried out. We won't dramatize that night. It doesn't belong to business history. It belongs to the families. What can be said, carefully, is this. An airline already bleeding could not carry that grief and that fear on top of everything else. Bookings faltered. The Blue Globe, which had always meant the world is safe to visit, now carried the weight of the world's cruelty. The Gulf War finished the arithmetic. Fuel spiking, Atlantic travel collapsing. In January 1991, Pan Am filed for bankruptcy and kept flying on hope and asset sales, handing its remaining crown jewel Atlantic routes to Delta. Hope ran out on the morning of December 4th, 1991. Midday. Mid-schedule. The money simply ended, and the shutdown order went out with aircraft still in the air. One airplane was southeast of Miami when it became a museum piece in flight. A 727 named Clipper Goodwill, running Flight 436 from Bridgetown, Barbados, under Captain Mark Pyle. 64 years of Clippers. The flying boats, the 707s, the jumbos, the moon list. And now all of it funneled down to one final approach into Miami, the city where the Clippers were born. Captain Pyle put her down gently, taxied in, shut down the engines, and Pan American World Airways was over. So, how does the airline that invented modern travel vanish in a day? It didn't, of course. It vanished over 13 years, and the last day was only the paperwork. Pan Am died of its birth defect. It was built as an instrument of national policy. World routes, no roots. And when the policy changed in 1978, no glamour, no globe, no history could substitute for the river system it was never allowed to grow. The blows that followed, the oil, the war, the unspeakable crime over Scotland, fell on a giant already hollowed. Born by government favor, killed by government neutrality. The sky, it turns out, belongs to whoever owns the ground beneath it. And yet, look up. Chances are you've flown inside Pan Am's greatest monument without thinking of it. Every 747 that ever flew, half a century of them, millions of flights, billions of passengers, exists because Juan Trippe asked his friend for a bigger plane. Boeing built the cathedral. Pan Am ordered it into existence. The airline died. The airplane carried the world. The routes never died either. They live on inside United's Pacific network and Delta's Atlantic one, rivers still flowing under different flags. When you fly New York to London tonight, you're riding a road the Clippers surveyed. The globe itself had the strangest afterlife in this whole series. In 1998, the Pan Am name and logo were bought by a railroad company, which repainted itself in Pan Am blue. The most glamorous brand of the jet age spent its retirement on freight trains in New England. In America, the money changes vehicles. So, apparently, do the logos. And the moon list? 93,000 people who trusted one airline to take them to space never got the flight. But watch a private rocket company sell a tourist seat today, and you're watching Pan Am's oldest promise being kept by heirs who never knew it. The reservation book outlived the airline. Audacity, it turns out, is transferable. Pan Am's story is the third time in this series that a single signature in Washington redrew the fate of an American giant. A tax rule built the malls, a highway act emptied Route 66, and a deregulation act grounded the chosen instrument. Empires don't just compete with rivals. They live and die inside the rules, and the rules always change. Next time, we come back down to earth, to the ground that built everything else in this series, steel. There is a city in Indiana that U.S. Steel built from nothing, named after its own chairman, that once made the metal inside America's cars, bridges, and skylines. Then the steel left, and the city it built was left behind, block by silent block. Gary, Indiana, the company town that lost its company. That's next time on Boomtown, America.